So my name's Sierra. I go to Algonquin College. I'm in the Autism and Behavioral Science program, and I'm going to be the trainer for the session. So I'm kind of going to be going over certain things with you. So basically what we'll go over now is the program description. So if you just want to get the sheet that says the skill acquisition program template, I can kind of show you what we're going to be learning today.
Of course.
So what we're going to be doing is basically teaching a learner a receptive language skill. So it comes from the ABLES task code C57. So basically what we're going to be doing is the learner is going to be identifying pictures of social interactions. So I have 3 cue cards here with pictures printed on them. So I have fighting, embarrassed, and working at the table. So the target skill that we're going to be looking at will be fighting. So the SD that we're going to be using will be point to fighting. And so that'll be sort of the program description of what we're going to be doing. And then if you just want to look at the agenda again, we will go over in more detail what the expectations will be. So we're going to review the learning objectives for the session. So essentially what we'll be doing is it'll start off by doing a modeling procedure where I'm going to model the correct IBI technique for you. We're going to focus on error correction, which I'll talk about in a minute. So basically I will model how to do a proper error correction for you with all the steps. And when I do the first modeling procedure, it'll be a time where you can take notes, but I won't give you further instruction. So then the second learning objective, I'll do the modeling once more. I'll model how to do the proper error correction procedure, but for this time, I'll actually give you instructions. So as I'm doing the skill, I'll give you verbal cues of what I'm doing and basically how to improve on the skill at the same time. And then we'll move into the rehearsal part of the learning objectives, where this will be an opportunity where you'll have time to ask questions about the target skill. Anything that's unclear, you can ask anything. If you're not sure about your expectations or what is expected of you, we can go over that. And it'll also give you an opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge of the skill, where you're going to get a chance to practice doing the skill on me. So we'll have a little bit of fun with that. I'm going to pretend that I'm the kid, so I'll play dumb, and I won't say anything. I'll just let you do your thing, and then we'll kind of, that brings me to the next point where we'll go into a feedback, where I'll kind of use the performance checklist, which I'll talk about in a second, and I'll tell you how you did and how you can improve for future sessions, and we'll do that. So now we're at the point where we're going to discuss goals for the session. So I was wondering if there's any specific goals or achievements that you'd like to learn or see during the session today.
Well, first I'd like to learn about proper error correction techniques,
Okay.
and as well as any consistencies with mind reinforcements.
Okay, perfect. Anything else in terms of fading or error correction or anything else specific that you want to learn?
Probably with the prompt towards towards fading.
Okay, so you're talking about the most to least prompt / prompt fade procedure. That's
Yes.
awesome, and that actually goes hand in hand with the error correction procedure. So we can definitely incorporate that as part of the learning. So that's perfect. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, if you want to look at the skills acquisition program again, we're going to kind of go over the expectations that we have for you today. So what you're going to be responsible for, if you just want to flip over to where it says the error correction procedure, that's what I'm sort of going to be targeting today and watching how you do this, and if you do it correctly or if there's anything that we need to focus on. So basically an error correction procedure consists of 4 steps. So you would have your cards placed out in front of you like this. You would tell the learner, point to fighting. Let's say they do nothing for up to 3 seconds, so they don't respond. So the first step you see is reissue the SD. So you would reissue your SD, so you would say point to fighting, and then you would immediately use a level of prompt. I'll explain the different levels of prompts after. Usually the way it works is you use the most, we go by the most to least prompt / prompt fading strategy. So you'll use your full physical prompt first, followed by a partial physical prompt, gestural prompt, and then a verbal prompt. So the full physical would be where you're doing hand over hand, where you're guiding the learner to touch it. Partial physical prompt, you're kind of giving a nudge. Gestural prompt, you're kind of just gesturing with your finger. Verbal prompt is you're adding a little bit more of a cue for the learner, but I'll show you that when we do our example. And then, so you reissue SD, use the prompt, you're going to reissue the SD again, point to fighting, use the same prompt. We always like to throw in a distractor trial. So the distractor trial, for the purposes of this training session, you're just going to tell the learner, and can you clap your hands? And the learner will clap their hands. Which the distractor trial is a previously mastered skill, something that you know the learner can do, they won't err on it. And then after that, you're going to reissue the SD one more time, so point to fighting, and then you're going to try to maybe fade out your prompt or use the exact same prompt, which I will show you. And then that leads me into, if you want to go to the performance checklist, so this is basically how you're going to be evaluated. Have you ever heard about a performance checklist before?
I have not.
Okay, so basically what a performance checklist is it's a written task analysis, which includes a description of all the critical steps the mediator must perform to complete a teaching skill correctly. So it's essentially a monitoring tool that we use to kind of grade the mediators. So basically, if you look at, there's going to be 10 steps that you're going to be graded on. So the first one's just going to be the mediator, you have your materials ready. The second one is you issue the correct SD of point to fighting. Third one, you're going to recognize if/when the learner errs, and we're assuming this is a new skill, so they will err. And then you'll move into, if the learner responded incorrectly, you're going to reissue the SD, so step 1 of the error correction procedure. Then upon reissuing the SD, you'll give the proper prompt. You'll also see if you use the correct use of prompt. Then what you'll do is immediately after that, you'll repeat steps 4 to 6, which means you're just going to reissue the SD again and prompt. Then you're going to throw in the distractor trial, which we said was going to be clap hands. You'll do that. And then you're going to reissue steps 4 to 6, meaning you're reissuing the SD, prompting again. And then the last thing I'm going to be looking for is at that point when you've done all the steps of the error correction, then you're going to immediately give reinforcement to the learner. So our reinforcement today is going to be Play-Doh. So basically, after you've done the 4th step, you've reissued the SD, prompted the learner, then you can be saying, good job, that's pointing to fighting, and then you can give them a piece of the Play-Doh. So that's going to be kind of what I'm going to be looking for you to do in terms of what you're going to be evaluated on. And then we'll move into, I'm going to model the skill for you. There'll be a period for questions. There'll be a period where you can ask me questions. I'm going to test your knowledge for the skill. And then you're going to get a chance to practice on me as learning objective number 3. And then we'll discuss the feedback using the performance checklist, which I just went over. And then we'll review your success. So on the performance checklist, you can see where there's going to be a mark out of, it's called accuracy of performance score. So basically, if you're doing all the correct steps, you get yeses. If you miss a step, then you'll get a no. And then basically, it'll be the number of yeses you get divided by the number of steps scored. So there's 10. So let's say you get 8 out of 10. And that would be an 80% score. And so basically, at the end of the session, I'll kind of evaluate whether I feel we need to do a next session to practice, or we'll just schedule a next session, but you'll get more hands-on practice and you'll actually get to be with the actual learner. Alright, Bailey, so basically now I'm going to do the first part of the learning objectives where I'm just going to model how to do the skill for you. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to put the pictures in front of the learner. And if you want to take notes, I'm just going to do them really quickly, and then I'll give you instructions the second round. So, this will be full physical prompt. Point to fighting. Point to fighting. That's pointing to fighting. Point to fighting. That's pointing to fighting. And can you clap your hands? And point to fighting. That's pointing to fighting. Good job. You can have some Play-Doh. Alright, so that was full physical prompt. The next one we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to fade it out a little bit, so I'm going to kind of use a partial as my next prompt. Alright, 3, 2, 1, my turn with the Play-Doh, thank you. Alright, let's look at these pictures here, and point to fighting, point to fighting, that's fighting, point to fighting, that's fighting, and can you clap your hands? and point to fighting. That's fighting. Good job. You can have some Play-Doh. So that's essentially, you're going to go from a full physical prompt to a partial physical prompt. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of guide you through the instructions of how to do this. So 3, 2, 1, my turn with the Play-Doh. Thank you. Get the learner's attention. So now I'm going to place the cards out in front of the learner in a horizontal array. I'm going to issue my SD. Point to fighting. The learner's not really doing anything within 3 seconds, so I'm going to give a full physical prompt. And point to fighting. Hand over hand, her. That's pointing to fighting. Point to fighting. That's pointing to fighting. And can you clap your hands? Issue my distractor trial. And point to fighting. That's pointing to fighting. So I still use my full physical prompt. Here's some Play-Doh, reinforced after. So that's how to do a full physical prompt. So then you're going to get the learner's attention again. 3, 2, 1, my turn with the Play-Doh. Oh, thank you for listening. And you'll reset the cards down in horizontal array. Alright, let's look at these pictures here. And now I'm going to use a partial physical prompt. Point to fighting. Learner's looking but not really making any point to learn. So I'm going to block the first 2 cards. Nudge her. Point to fighting. That's fighting. Point to fighting. That's fighting. I'm guiding her hand to make the correct answer. And can you clap your hands? And point to fighting. That's fighting. Here you go. Okay, Bailey, do you have any questions before we do the rehearsal part of the presentation?
I do. Do you always reissue the SD twice?
You do, actually, as part of the error correction procedure. So you always start with the learner would error, reissue the SD, prompt them, reissue your SD, give them another prompt, always issue your distractor trial, which will be the clap hands for this case, and then reissue your other SD, and then immediately prompt and then reinforce at the end. So you always have to reissue. You end up reissuing it 3 times.
Okay, perfect.
And I'll ask you a couple of questions just to test your knowledge. So what's the first thing you do when you're doing a teaching procedure with a learner?
You lay out the cards horizontally.
Good. Awesome. A lot of people get that wrong, so I'm really glad that you paid attention and listened to that. The next question I have for you is, so let's say you issue the SD and the learner does nothing for up to 3 seconds. What would you do?
You take the hand over hand and you point them towards it.
Perfect. What type of prompt is that called?
That's full reinforcement.
So, full physical prompt. But you're right. Awesome. Alright, so now I'm going to hand you over the materials. It's now the point in the session where you get to practice on me. So,
alright.
I'm going to just play dumb, and then I'll have my performance checklist over here, and then we'll see how you do.
Perfect. Point to fighting. That's fighting. Point to fighting. That's fighting. Clap your hands. Point to fighting. That's fighting. Here, play with Play-Doh.
Thanks. Awesome. So we'll just do it one more time there, if you don't mind.
Don't mind at all?
Alright.
No. Point to fighting. That's fighting. Point to fighting. That's fighting. Clap your hands. Now point to fighting. That's fighting.
Good job. That was actually really well done. So basically, again, I think in the first one that you did, a little bit slow, and I'm not sure if you had reissued the SD, but I think you mostly did, which was good, and good use of prompts. You did both the full and partial physical prompt correctly. So yeah, I think that based on all of that, you did mostly all of the error correction procedure. And you were firm. Only thing I might have added was just gain the learner's attention before, but that was minor. So I'd still give you a 9 out of 10, which is 90%, which is your accuracy of performance score, which is awesome. That means you got 9 yeses out of 10, which is what we were looking for. And then basically we can schedule the next session. It'll be more of a hands-on session where we'll maybe do 1 or 2 other practice rounds, but then you'll get a chance to practice on the learner, which will be perfect. And does April 4th sound good for a next session for you?
Sounds great.
Awesome. So I'm just going to sign really quickly here to say that we're going to do the next session if you just want to sign there. And before we go, do you have any goals that we're going to do for the next session?
I do. Maybe more trials. different program targets.
Okay, yeah.
And differential reinforcement.
Yeah, so here we did a receptive language skill, but maybe we'll do motor imitation, and then we'll try, like I said, you'll get a chance to try on some learners, we'll give it a go. So thanks so much, hopefully this session was helpful for you,
It was.
and I'm looking forward to the next one, and I think you're going to do really well.
Perfect, thank
Awesome.
you.
It was nice meeting you, Bailey.
Nice to meet you.